It is my birthday week, and that means it's time to review my year and share the lessons I learned from another year here on Earth. Welcome to Explore Your Enthusiasm, episode 261. Each year on my birthday, I share a bit about my birthday review process. And just like we do at the new year, every year I look at what was great, what wasn't, and what lessons is my life teaching me. And because my birthday's in June, I find it's like the perfect time to kind of take a minute and look at what's happened so far this year. And then also over the last year, from June to June, what has gone on. So to do this birthday review, I use the monthly questions found in my book, Map Your Business. This pink book right here, if you're watching the video. This book has these questions every month for 12 months, so you can start whenever, and that makes reviewing your month and planning for the next year a regular part of your business and life, which can help you learn the lessons quicker and kind of grow faster because you're learning what's coming up for you month to month. You can find this book on Amazon. I've linked it up in the show notes. You can get Map Your Business on Amazon, or you can just go there and search. Yeah, so I'm using those questions to kind of shape how I'm talking about my birthday. I do my own monthly review using the book. So in the show notes, at tarswiger.com/podcast 261, I have linked to all past birthday episodes because I'm serious. I've been doing this for a long time. If you count blog posts, it goes back 10 years. I have been posting every year on my birthday something. Is that crazy? It's all at tarswiger.com/podcast 261. There's a bulleted list of all 10 past episodes. This is actually going to be the 11th. Oh my gosh. So I gotta tell you, I read back through last year's transcript and it was so good. I needed to hear the message again. I went back a couple years and looked at different years' as posts, and they are all still so applicable. I love that I have this archive and that I've gotten to share it with you for now the 11th year in a row. So let's get to this year. This year was epic. There were big changes in our lives. They were crazy, as you can imagine if you've been following along, especially with my weekly vlog, which you can find over at YouTube, where you'll also find this video for this podcast episode. It's at tarswiger.com/YouTube. Now, before I get to the good stuff and the lessons, I want to share the things that were like not so good. They're not bad. It's stuff that I chose, but I don't want to make it sound like, well, here's the thing. Having the life that you want means choosing some things over others. We've talked about, just a month or two ago, we talked about sacrifices and balancing and time. And the fact is I sacrificed some things in exchange for other things. And I always want to be really honest about that because I think it's easy to see someone else's celebrations and think, yeah, well, they can have everything. They don't have to give anything up. They didn't have to choose something over something else. All of these things are my choice, and I just want to be really honest about the choices I make so that when you have to make hard choices in your business, you know you're not alone in that. So this year I did not travel as much as I have in past years, although I did go to Columbus, Salt Lake City, San Diego, Charleston, and together Jay and I went to go see my parents in Oregon. They live outside of Medford, Oregon, and we also went to see my mom in Cookeville, Tennessee. So we also went to Asheville, North Carolina a lot. If you follow my weekly vlog, you see when we go to Asheville. I love to post videos around Asheville. It's such a cool city. So that might sound like a lot of travel. That might be a lot of travel for you, but it's really not that much travel for me. But that was a choice that I made. So also my business did not grow as much as it has in the past. And I want to be really clear about that. But that's because I did not work on it as much as I have in past years. And I made some explicit choices to cut back on some things that I needed to cut back on, which I knew would be a short-term loss in order to have the long-term gain of time and energy to put towards other projects. So I stopped selling things that made money, and I changed payment plans in a way that meant that there are several months where I made less because I spread the payment plan for Starship members out over a longer time period. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what happened. And I streamlined my business a lot. So some of those things that I got rid of that weren't making money, that were making money and they simply took too much time and effort. And I talk more about how I streamlined my business and how I made those choices in episode 224. So you can go to taraswiger.com/podcast 224, or you can find it linked up in today's show notes, along with all those past birthday episodes. Now, the good stuff was really good, and they were what I was choosing instead of travel and business growth. And by the way, my business still is able to be my full-time income. It still pays 70 to 80% of our bills each month. It didn't have the growth percentage that it had in last year's. So this year's good stuff. The biggest thing is that we became parents. I became a mother. No big deal. Just my whole world was completely shattered by first a 3-month-old and then a 2-year-old and then a 6-week-old. And if you're new around here, you might not realize that we're foster parents, and that's how we had so many different aged kids in just the last year, 12 months. Also, the good stuff this year is I actually found meds that work for my mental health. If you've been around here for a while, you heard me talk in 2016 about how the meds that I had tried did not work, and they were bad and had bad outcomes. And I actually tried a lot in 2016, and it made me need to take a whole break from trying medication. And I tried one this year, and it worked out great. So another big thing was figuring out how to be a mom and run a business. My business is entirely based on my brain working. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the lessons. And so it's a really good thing to learn to balance both. And another thing that I learned, and that was good this year, is we became licensed foster parents. So that happened since my birthday last year. It happened around September of last year. We became licensed foster parents. We actually got 3 different placements over the last 12 months, and I have learned the foster care system inside and out. I feel like I've made some real kind of epiphanies about how the system works. This helped me navigate the system and manage my expectations, and I share all of that in the weekly vlog. So if you watch the weekly videos, you'll see there's a whole playlist about foster care lessons that I think actually started around last year at this time. So I've been sharing there for about a year. Now, next, I want to talk about the lessons I learned each year, because it's one thing to just notice what went well, what didn't, but what did I learn from it all? So we've got 3 big lessons for you, and this applies to all of you guys. No matter what you're going through in the year, I bet you can learn something from these lessons, and hopefully it will take some of the learning curve away from you having to learn it yourself, if I'll just learn it for us, okay? Lesson 1, motherhood plus entrepreneurship is like no joke. I don't know another way of framing this lesson, but basically the lesson was everything is harder than I think. And I know y'all veteran moms are rolling your eyes at me and you're like, yeah, no duh. Of course. What'd you think? But I'm going to be really honest here, because I can only speak from my experience, and I just want to be totally honest. I knew it would take a lot of time and energy, but I was not prepared for how much of my brain and my thoughts it completely took over. I mean, when a kid comes, we have no warning. It's not like 9 months to lead up to it, and then you have hours of labor. There's no warning. There's a kid in our life, and you don't know what age or gender or ability they're going to have or be. And so it's always a little crazy. But I was surprised that I literally could not think my own thoughts for the first 2 to 3 weeks. And when we got the 6-week-old, she was only with us for a week. It wasn't quite as bad because she was more in the slug stage, so she wasn't as active. The 2-year-old was out of this world difficult. But even the 3-month-old, her, level of attention and wanting to do things and having preferences. So just getting used to feeding them and sleeping them and keeping them alive took up all of my thoughts. It's all baby thoughts all the time. So even thinking of my own needs, like to shower or to read a book, or even honestly to fall asleep sometimes, it wasn't even an option. So of course, deeper thinky thoughts like strategizing my business, or heck, even writing this podcast episode, or even answering questions I would get, like it wasn't even accessible in my brain. Like I told you, like I literally can't think my own thoughts right now. All my thoughts are keeping this thing alive. Now, that is really for a short amount of time. 2 to 3 weeks is not that long. But even after we're used to each other and we've settled in a little bit and we have routines, which we got to do with the 2-year-old because she was here for 3 months, it's less of a shock that, oh my gosh, there's a baby in my house. But I still never fully recovered my thinking brain. Maybe if a placement lasted more than 3 months, I'd have the chance to. But that makes doing things like strategic planning or writing or anything, focusing, learning, it makes it really hard. So the lesson was, it is more emotionally and mentally intense than I was expecting, but that also means that I know a little more about what to expect next time, so I can be easier on myself. Also, one of the lessons is everything is okay. It is okay to not be at 100%. I really, most of my business life, have been operating, have been in control of 100% of my brain. And I realized that running a business and being a mother, I don't know that I'm ever going to get 100% of my brain back to spend on my business. As long as they're alive, even the kids who have left me, I still think about them regularly. So it's okay. It's okay to feel slightly slow all of the time. It's okay to not be at 100%. And by the way, I told my mom right after the baby came to stay with us, I cannot believe I ever even spoke to mothers about their business ever. They should have just ignored me because I had no idea what it was like. So if you've ever listened to a past podcast episode and think, that doesn't apply to me, it might just be because I don't know what I'm talking about, or I didn't know what I was talking about for sure. So I just want to put that out there. Speaking of not knowing what I was talking about, the next lesson is I need to and can give myself more grace. So one of the things I struggled with most during this transition to motherhood, which is still ongoing, and this applies whether you're momming or not, right now this transition is just kind of on pause until we get the next placement, which in and of itself is weird. But one of the things I really struggled with was being really hard on myself. So to be clear, I have never been a perfectionist. I am always the one saying, oh, it's fine. Done is better than perfect. I deeply believe that. I live like that. I ain't trying to be perfect. So I'd rather have something done and then fix it and upgrade it and tweak it and improve on it once I'm getting feedback on it than try to perfect it from the start. That's always been how my business has worked. And it's why I think I have such a great relationship with you, with listeners, with students, because I am always making it better for you, not the best thing I thought of, but what's going to be best after your feedback. So I was really surprised when I became so hard on myself for everything related to childcare, and especially toddler care. It wasn't like this with the babies as much. I was disappointed. I didn't feed her only ever whole foods. I was disappointed when I snapped at her. I was frustrated when her nap didn't go as planned. And I think it's that I just didn't see that, just like my business, this parenting thing is a progressive thing. It's a lot of tiny actions that all build on themselves. You don't have to get every single action perfect for you to still get a good result and for it to be building something good all along. So you don't have to be perfect the first time. You just doing your best, and sometimes less than your best because you're tired or annoyed. It all works, and it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. Now, the good thing is I recognize this. I recognize that so much of being a foster parent is out of my control. And the funny thing is I was actually cognizant of that. So I was relaxed about not being in control of the really big stuff that drives most foster parents crazy. So like the system. And I wasn't in control of when they would leave or if they would stay or how many visits per week or any of that system stuff. But I took my need for control and I tried to exert control over the situation that was so much out of my control by controlling myself, by controlling my parenting, by controlling our schedule or routine, and constantly beating myself up for not doing enough. Because I'm not a perfectionist, I didn't become very controlling of other people in my life, like my husband or the kid. I just tried to control myself and I beat myself up for not doing it, which is not great. And it's really hard to live like that. So when I really recognized it, the first thing I did was I talked to other moms. I talked to some of you on Instagram stories. I talked to moms in real life. I texted with my mom. It's called my Rockstar Mom text group. And I decided to give myself more grace. Grace to be imperfect, grace to mess up, grace to even make the wrong decision sometimes. Like just grace to like, whenever I felt like, oh, I could have done that better, be like, wait, it's okay. It's all right. You did your best. That's what I mean by giving yourself grace. So I know I'm not alone in this. And I know that this is not just about parenting. A lot of you guys do this with your business. You might be a super confident parent, but you might feel really hard on yourself for every business decision, for every business mistake, for every business failure. So it's really about being nice to yourself in your internal dialogue versus holding yourself to some impossible standard. So I just want to take this minute to invite you to give yourself some grace. The third lesson I learned is that my business will survive almost anything. So when I was talking to Jay about this episode, he said that I learned that, quote, your business, this is a quote from our text chat, by the way, your business can survive your lowest point and your highest stress. And seriously, that's what this year has been full of. Like, this was an epically great year, but it was definitely stressful. And so from having the worst depressive episode I've ever had last summer to the stress of having a 2-year-old move in who is a total stranger and is not used to being told no or to going to sleep, I put my business more on hold this year than I ever have. So yes, I streamlined and I planned for that first maternity leave when we got our first placement in October. But right as I was starting to get back in the swing of work again, she went home. Totally changed my daily life. Then it took me a while to get back, first of all, to mourn losing her, and then to get back in the swing of productivity. And then we got our 2-year-old in early December. And it took me over a month to get a handle on productivity with her because we didn't have the childcare that we needed until mid-January. And then she stayed 3 months. So I was kind of getting back in the swing of things, and then she left and had to mourn that and also readjust to this new schedule. And then 2 weeks later, we got a baby for a week, and then she left. All that to say, one maternity leave is great, but all of the unknown and all of the emotions and all the back and forth from like having like 15 minutes a day to work to having, oh, back to my normal full day to work, which sounds great, but is actually really hard to get back into, combined with the fact that I didn't want to commit to do anything because I didn't want to let anybody down. And when you can get a phone call that's going to bring a newborn baby to your door in an hour, I didn't want to say I would do something and then not follow through. And so I just didn't make a lot of plans. And that was really hard on my business. Now, I've learned a lot about just being really open and honest with people about what you'll do and when you might have to cancel, and like still making plans, and then just, being okay with having to cancel the plans. But it was hard on my business to do that. And yet my business is really resilient. My audience doesn't all leave at once. Actually, most don't even notice when I'm offline for a couple weeks, as long as my promises are fulfilled. So students always get exactly what they bought, and the podcasts keep dropping every Wednesday morning without end through this all. And so it's been fine. Now, I want to be clear that this won't be true of every business, especially if you work hourly. But if you make product and sell product, this won't be true of yours until you've set it up that way. So my business is extra resilient, because I've been self-employed for 10 years now. And so I've been working on this a lot for a lot of different ways and over a lot of different time. And also because I set up systems to keep it running. So I talk about those systems in my episode about streamlining, which is episode 224, but I also teach you how to do it in my workbook called Take a Break Without Breaking Your Business. And you can find that at taraswiger.com/leave. And I actually worked on that with my friend, Stacy Trock, and she talked about maternity leave in particular. So when I got ready for this adventure of the past year, I went through that workbook and did what it said. That's really how I set myself up. So that's at taraswiger.com/leave if you want to buy that workbook. And what's great is it gets delivered automatically, whether I'm online that week or not. Now, the fact is, even though I set it up to be extra resilient, I always had a little bit of doubt. I have always worried that worst case scenario, everybody's going to leave and my business is going to fall apart. And if I didn't do X or Y, or if I canceled just one phone call or one weekly live, that everything would fall apart and I would lose all trust. And while my business did slow down its growth, it did not fall apart. So I want to share that with you, not just to celebrate it, but because I know a lot of you have that same fear. I want you to know it's going to be okay. You can set your business up to be resilient, but also anything you've been building over time, whether it's over months or it's over years, isn't going to just crumble in an instant. So take a deep breath and know it's going to be okay. Now, my last lesson was that taking care of myself is everything. And I feel silly for talking about this because I feel like, well, duh. But this year really challenged me in that area, and it really challenged me to step up how I treat myself because my life up-leveled. So my taking care of myself has to up-level. So emotionally, I did that by giving myself more grace, being aware, being mindful of when I was being really negative and switch it to positivity. But also physically, actually taking time to shower or go to the bathroom or to drink a glass of water or to diffuse the essential oils that I'm really feeling like that I know will change my mood. And I've known this for a long time, but when I really didn't have anyone depending on me or reminding me of it, when I didn't need anybody no one needed me to be at my absolute best, I would just tell myself it wasn't that important, I'll work on it later. Even though, here's a fun fact from my own business, I had my best business growth, percentage of growth, and my best mental health in the years that I was being outside and running longer races. So in between 2013 and 2015, I started running, ran a 5K, ran a 10K, and even though I knew that those were the years that I had the biggest percentage of growth and also the best mental health, I still told myself that it wasn't worth the time. And the reason for that is because I did not value me feeling good. And that makes me sad to say. But I am working on changing that internal message, and I'm working on valuing myself enough to take care of myself. So Jay always tells me, he started telling me this last summer when I was going through the depressive period and taking time off to just feel bad. He said, your entire job, your entire business is based on you being peak Tara. That's what he calls it. So the best Tara you can be. Your business is only going to survive if you feel great and you can show up to your students, to your podcast, to your workshops as peak Tara. And that's so true. And there's so many things I know that will help create peak Tara that I just wasn't doing. So although I wish I had come to this conclusion and I want us all to take care of ourselves simply because we're valuable and we're worth it and we deserve it, I'll be honest that it really took me having an outside reason to convince me. Knowing that the kids in my life deserved my absolute best, and knowing that you and my business deserved my absolute best, and that includes being taking care of myself physically, that is what convinced me. And by the way, that is classic Enneagram 2, that I will do anything to help someone else. So because of this lesson, I actually worked on sharing what I have learned is the absolute smallest changes you can make in a day to just pay more attention and take care of yourself. I created a 5-day free challenge. We ran it in May, and I'm bringing it back for y'all, along with a workshop that you can watch. So it walks you through 5 days of doing teeny tiny things to take better care of yourself. They're really small. Everything will take less than 5 minutes. And after the challenge is over, I'm going to continue to share my journey of taking better care of myself in monthly letters. So you'll get all of that when you join in at taraswiger.com/take care, because this is something that is foundational to everything else we talk about in our business. Yes, you need to set goals and make plans for achieving those goals, but you can't do that if you don't feel good enough, if you don't have the emotional well-being and the physical, if you're not doing as well as you can do physically. And by the way, I know that we all have different abilities and energy levels or spoons, and some of us have chronic illness or mental health issues. So I'm not talking about being like in peak physical condition the way anyone else would measure it. I'm talking about you being peak you. So you can find all of that at tarswiger.com/take-care. And that was my big lesson, my big lessons from the year I'm going to be taking with me, giving myself grace, recognizing that the job is hard, and taking care of myself. So I'd love to hear what you have learned in the last year. You can use my birthday as a chance to review, or hey, it's almost the end of June, so it's almost the midpoint of the year. So come tell me on Instagram. Use the hashtag Explore Your Enthusiasm and tag me. I'm at Tara Swiger. Be sure you tag me so that I see it. And if you want to leave me a birthday gift, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Leave a written review on iTunes or in your podcast app. So a written review really helps other people find the show, and it totally makes my day. Remember, you can find links to the past 10 years of birthday reviews over at taraswiger.com/podcast 261. Thank you so much for listening, and have a very enthusiastic year.